first speaker is Bo Nemelka. Bo works at Intermountain Health as a partner in the Strategy Office. In this role, he leads enterprise strategy, business development, and innovation initiatives in partnership with caregiver teams across the organization. He also spent 9 years with Levitt Partners. Bo married his high school sweetheart, Katie, and together they have 5 children. Bo is also a member of the BioUtah Board of Directors. Please join me in welcoming Bo to the stage to tell his story.
Okay, you're brave to stay after lunch and a break, so thanks for staying. And honestly, it's awesome just to see you here. So I have a video to tee up a few of my remarks, so can we roll that video? Are you good to go?
It was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody had gotten off work early so they could go to the ball game. We were all sitting there and they were playing the Chandler Second Ward out of Chandler, Arizona. One of the Chandler fellows hit the ball right to center field, and Mark was the center fielder, and he caught the ball. Then he instantly threw it to third base, so it was a long throw. So everybody was watching the ball. And then we turned around and Mark was flat on his face. He died instantly. When the doctors were checking him at the Murray Hospital, they said it was not a heart attack, but they had no idea why he suddenly collapsed.
I was in California with my mother. When we got to the train station, my father and my sister were there, and they informed us that Mark had passed away on the ball field. There was 9 boys and 1 girl. At no time did I think that what happened to Mark would happen to me or any of my other brothers. But in the end, of the 10, 5 of them passed away because of their heart before they turned 50. Out of all my other brothers, I was the only one that was revived and brought back to life.
My dream was to be a nurse. I always loved cardiology, and when I learned about John's cardiac arrest, that kind of started the whole process with, we need to understand more what is going on with this family. We need genetic testing so we can identify the gene and potentially get all family members screened. It's been 65 years that we have not known what was going on with this family, and now we do.
So as was mentioned, I'm a board member on the BioUtah board, and when Kelvin, we were at our board meeting, he said, let's have a patient story, and we were trying to come up with one. I was like, well, I have a good one, and it happens to be my family. So I just want to talk a little bit about this heart condition that we have in our family. It's a cardiomyopathy, dilated cardiomyopathy, and let me go through the slide here. Just hit down. So I just want to ask a few questions just to ponder on this. What would you do if this happened to you? Would you want to know if you had a life-threatening genetic disorder? There's a lot behind this question because there's a whole series of behavioral economics behind if you really do want to know or not. Would you test your children? If yes, when? And would you trust your health system to help you? So as was shown in the video, this is my grandfather, Mark Nemelka. I'm the grandson of Mark Nemelka. And as was mentioned, we started seeing an issue in the family mostly because my great-grandparents had 10 kids. So the denominator was so big that you could actually see a pattern. And so what a blessing it was for our family that in the 60s, 70s, 80s, we were able to watch what was happening, even though, unfortunately, there were many that lost their life from it. I'm a beneficiary of that blessing. This is my grandmother, her husband was Mark, that she spoke in the video, and she was pregnant with my dad when her husband died at the baseball park, and she didn't know she was pregnant. So 3 weeks after he passed away, she told me that she found out she was pregnant, so she named her son, my dad, Mark, after her late husband. She only had 2 sons. She had an older boy who was 3 at the time her husband died. Those were the only 2 boys she had from him. She went on to be remarried and had 4 other kids. None of those kids had the heart condition because the heart disease went through my grandpa. We didn't know at the time, though, that was happening. And then my dad and my uncle, Jeff, the older boy, he doesn't have this gene. And we didn't know until about 2014 that what this gene exactly was. So interesting that you either get it or you don't. And unfortunately, it kind of passed to my dad. This is me on the right I have a twin brother. We're the only 2 sons from my dad, or 2 kids, I should say. When I was a young boy, this is me in the hospital bed there with my brother, my dad started getting sick. And my dad had a defibrillator implanted, and then at the age of 33 received a heart transplant. He's one of 8 Nemelka family members who received heart transplants so far. And so it was interesting because even back then in 1997, we didn't really know what was happening. We assumed it had something to do with what happened to his dad, and probably his dad's life could have been saved if they would have known about this before. So my dad had that heart transplant. It didn't go well at one time and during the operation. I remember being a 10-year-old boy when they came out and said my dad wasn't going to make it. And then a really patient doctor stayed with him, and he made it. He's still alive today. He's one of the longest living recipients of heart transplant. He's on about 30 years of his new heart. He's actually, this year, he's going up to the committee to be put on the transplant list again. Because when you receive a new heart, you lose the condition that you had originally, but you swap it for a whole set of new problems because your body starts to reject it. So some of you might recognize this man. This is Dr. Dale Renland, who's well known in the Utah community. He was one of my dad's doctors, which is kind of cool. I won't show this long. This was, don't want to make anyone sick. Back then, they let me keep the heart in a jar of formaldehyde, and my brother and I won the state science fair with it. That was they would never let you do that right now. But we won, we got to keep it. We took it home with us. So in 2014, I was living in Connecticut in graduate school, and I got a phone call from Intermountain Precision Genomics that they had found the gene in our family that caused this condition. It was a DES protein gene. And it's a really weird feeling and a phone call to get, because you go through those psychological questions of, oh, shoot, do I really want to know if I have this or not? And so it took me some time. And so, but in 2018, I decided, all right, I wasn't having any medical issues, nothing was happening. But there was always that kind of voice in the back of my head like, man, if something were to happen to me, I would really regret not doing this. So a good team of doctors convinced me that it was time to put in a medical device. So I have a Medtronic defibrillator that sits right there in my chest with a metal lead that goes down into my heart, and it releases electricity to shock me if my heart jumps. So I showed this picture, and I added this in because I gave this presentation one other time back in January. I'd felt healthy since, but in June, I was up at a young men's church camp, and I was playing football with the boys, and suddenly I started seeing stars. I fell forward, and it went off. Totally saved my life on the North Shore of Bear Lake. And then 3 weeks ago, I was playing tennis, and again went off. And so, and then it went off the next morning as well. So since January, and since a year before that of getting it, in the last 2 years, I've had this device go off 3 times. And all 3 times, my heart rate's been over 280 beats a minute, when it's fired off. So what happens is I have an arrhythmia that if I'm sitting here presenting to you, and don't worry, it's not going to go off, but I'm sitting at about a 70 resting heart rate right now, but I'll feel my heart accelerate to like 120 or 130, and then it'll come back down because there's scarring in my heart. So what happens is if I'm playing football or tennis or something of high intensity, then I might be up in like 140, 150s, and then if I get that arrhythmia that jumps it, then it goes out of control, and I need to be shocked. So it's not a fun thing to have in your body because it's painful and it hurts when it goes off, but I am so grateful I have it. I am alive and here where ancestors, uncles, grandfather, others would not have what I have today. So I'm able to live a very, very happy life right now. I have a wonderful wife, 5 beautiful children, a great job, and I love healthcare. I love being in healthcare because there's a personal side to it as well. So for all of you working in whatever role you are in, just from a patient perspective, I'm grateful because it really does impact and save lives. And there is obviously a problem in our healthcare system. I know it from working at Intermountain. I know it from I loved Dr. Smith's comments this morning. We know there's issues. This is a genetic issue. I didn't eat my way into this, and I can't eat my way out of it. This is just part of what I was born with. So I'm grateful that we have scientists, researchers, others, devices, drugs. I went into the hospital in June taking 0 prescription medications, and now I'm on 7. So it could happen at any moment. So anyway, I want to leave time for the next presenters. Wanted to say thank you, but that's the story I wanted to share, and appreciate having me.
Good afternoon. First of all, outside Julie, who here knows what XLH is other than what was just told to you? That's about it. Up till about a little over 4 years ago, I had no idea either. Today I'm going to look at what XLH is, symptoms of XLH, our determination, the family pedigree, and the treatment for XLH. As was just covered, XLH is a hereditary disease that is caused by a mutation on the FX gene in the X chromosome. And like he said, it causes low phosphorus levels in your blood and causes what's known as phosphate wasting, where your kidneys excrement too much phosphorus out of your system. 1 in 20,000 people have XLH. And you can display it in 3 ways. Early onset, where a child shows it in infancy, late onset, and then 20 or 30% of the people that have XLH has what's called spontaneous, where the gene mutates and then they have it and then they can pass it on to their offspring. XLH is a hereditary condition. The X-linked means a condition is most often passed through families on the X chromosome. If a father has XLH, his son has 0 chance of having it. His daughter automatically has to have it. If a mother has it, 50-50 chance for each of her offspring to have it. The symptoms, I'm going to cover a few of the symptoms that I've dealt with. Weakening of the bones, I haven't really had that much problem with. Short stature. Here, a year and a half ago, after we found out that we had, it's been more like 2 years ago now, there was a advisory panel here in Salt Lake City, and it was focusing on people that had been on treatment for XLH, had went off, and then was looking at going back on. They had 2 people drop out the day before the panel. They called me and asked me and my daughter if we would come down and partake in the panel. We came down on Friday night, went to the panel, and on the way home, my daughter's riding with me, and she said, "I've never felt so tall." She's 5'1". The average XLH patient may be 4'6", 4'7", something like that. Bone and joint pain, I've lived with it all my life. When I was a kid, I had trouble with knee going out of place. Right now, my daughter and 4 of the 5 female cousins all have had knee surgery. Hearing loss, it is bad. It gets worse. Some people have to take and get implants or else they lose their hearing totally. Muscle pain and weakness, a lot of cramps, over the time, with age, and I think it's been accelerated that I've gotten weaker. Dental abscesses, I've had 8 root canals, 13 crowns, tooth loss. My grandson, at the age of 8, had to have 8 teeth pulled because of abscesses. A hardening of the ligaments and tendons, where my Achilles tendon adjoins to the ankle, it protrudes about almost an inch. And that happens with a lot of the ligament where it attaches to the bone. Narrowing spaces in the spinal column, a lot of times it causes impingement on the nerves. For me, my lumbar has fused by itself. My brother, that's 14 months younger than me, I'd say he's got probably 80% of his spine is fused. Osteoarthritis, a lot of times the calcium instead of going to the bones goes to the joint. In February and October of last year, I had both hips replaced, one in February, one in October. The doctor that did my surgery said that I was the worst hips that he had ever seen. My brother, that's 14 months younger than me, when they take and do it, normally they take and dislocate the ball from the hip socket. His was done in St. Louis by the St. Louis Cardinal orthopedic surgeon, and the surgeon had to take and actually cut bone away so that they could dislocate his ball from his socket. And then fatigue, like I talked about the weakness, that's something else that takes place. Let's see, 1 minute here. Let's see. All right, on our determination, this here is my niece, Emily, and her daughter, Isla. In 2018, she started going to her 6-month pediatrician appointment, and Emily said, "Something's wrong with her legs. They're not right." And the doctor said, "Oh, that's just normal." She went back again at the 12-month checkup, and again she said, "Something's wrong," and the doctor said, "No, that's right. It's normal for infants." Then at the 18 months after she went back and again was told it was normal, she went online then and started looking up what caused bow legs. And she found articles on hypophosphatemia. She took and got a reference to Shriners Hospital in St. Louis, and that was where it was determined that she did have XLH. After that, they notified our family, and all of us started doing a genetic testing, and right now we're up to 32 in it. With the first one, my grandfather, he was bow-legged, a little short in stature, and we always thought he had had polio. He also had one arm that was a little misformed and stuff. So we always thought that. As we was growing up, we took and started getting what we thought was just some type of arthritis. We was getting back pain, stuff like that. And even some of us were diagnosed with a certain type of arthritis. My brother, 14 months younger, was diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis. The majority of our family has had late onset XLH. I was in my 30s, loved playing softball, loved playing football, and I started having trouble going down to, say, pick up a ground ball or pick up a ball off the ground. And eventually, I quit playing those two sports. Of the family that's our family, there's 4 people that I'm sure had early onset XLH. My grandfather, although back then I don't think he was diagnosed with anything at all. My Aunt Bonnie, a cousin Brad, and then little Isla. Brad had minor bowing of the legs, and he was treated by Shriners in St. Louis and wore braces to straighten his legs. I'll be showing you some pictures of the other 2 here in a second. This is Granny and Gramps with 5 of their 7 children. Aunt Linda had a twin sister that passed away in infancy, and then Aunt Bonnie had a twin brother that passed away about 3 years old from a fever. This is the Birchfield pedigree. Generation 1, there's Gramps. And then the next one down, generation 2, are the 5 sisters. And because Gramps had it, all 5 sisters had to have it. My mom is generation 2-1. Generation 3, I am generation 3-2. All right, so since Mom had it, us 5 kids, we have 50-50 chance. We batted 1,000. When this chart was made, there were 5 generations. Since that time, we've added 1 more generation, my 2 great-granddaughters, and then one of them, Little Sage, she does have it because she had 50-50 chance from her mother, and then because my grandson didn't have it, my other great-granddaughter doesn't have it. Let me see here. There are several hospitals that have done studies on XLH. My cousin Cindy, generation 3, number 8, got in contact with, or was in contact with Vanderbilt Hospital, and Vanderbilt had never seen a family that had so many that had XLH, and asked us to participate in a 10-year study. Right now I'm in about the 4th year of this study. To qualify for the treatment that was developed by Ultragenics, the treatment is Crysvita. Your phosphate level has to be below 3.2. For the first year and a half when I was doing testing, mine was 3.2, so I didn't qualify for Crysvita. In a subsequent appointment, I did drop down below 3.2, and I qualified for Crysvita. This is my Aunt Bonnie, 1945. She, like her other 2, went to Shriners. 1945, they didn't have any idea what XLH was. How they treated her bowed legs, they broke every bone in her legs and cast them to straighten them out. This is little Isla, the one that it's because of her that we know what XLH is and we're able to get treatment for it. This is her x-rays. 2019, before she started taking Crysvita, 2021 year in after taking Crysvita, in 2021, that's how much Crysvita has done for her. For me, my infusions, I've had increased mobility. I've been able to turn, twist further than I was able to, and so is my other brothers and sister that are on Crysvita. That's the same feeling. Here recently, different insurances have different ways that you have to take the shot. Some of them allow self-injection. Mine, was going to an injection or infusion center. I took my July shot, and then in August, right before I was due, I was notified that my injection office or clinic had shut down in Layton and was now down at Murray. Their other one was down at Murray. So I went and got my August injection down in Murray, and then it took me almost a month and a half to get the Layton Hospital Infusion Center insurance accepted and their pharmacy's account set up. During that time, that month and a half without Crysvita, well, first of all, I took Crysvita 28 days, every 28 days. Mine, I was doing it every Thursday morning, every 4 weeks. At the 25-day point, I started running out of gas about noon. I started getting weaker, and this is something that's said about everybody. And then I went for a month and a half without taking Crysvita. And during that time, for me to get up and get started, the first 2 or 3 steps was real painful, real slow. And now that I've been back on the Crysvita with 1 injection, I'm back closer to normal than what I was. If you have anyone that's showing bowing of legs or anything like that, it's important that they get tested because this is an overlooked disease and stuff. And I'd like to thank Ultragenics for their development of Crysvita. Thank you.
I have to apologize. I don't have any slides for you today, but I hope that should be okay. My name is Ethan Bruns. I am a sophomore at the University of Utah, majoring in biology with an emphasis in genetics, as you literally just heard. That is how I introduce myself to people. When I meet someone for the first time, I usually don't talk about my rare disease, and I'll touch back on that later. But that makes this kind of ironic, where the whole point I'm speaking to you today is about my rare disease. And I'm here to tell my story of my symptoms, my diagnosis, my treatment, and how that, and my life after that, and how that has affected everything. When I was 8, January 2013, I came home from school sick. I had thrown up in class, and I spent the next 2 days lying in my bed or on the couch watching TV, which as a 3rd grader was really nice. I enjoyed that time, but the problem is that I wasn't getting better at all. I was getting worse. It was getting harder to move. I couldn't really eat or drink anything without it coming right back up. And then on Tuesday, the most frightening symptom appeared where I had blood in my urine. So we scheduled a doctor's appointment for that Wednesday. I distinctly remember that morning where I showered. I could barely stand in the shower. I threw up afterwards. I was weak, frail. My skin was yellow, and we went to the doctors. They couldn't really give us much at the moment, but they recommended we go down to the ER at Primary Children's. I distinctly remember getting in, getting fluids, getting rehydrated, and getting test results. In about the 3 days when initial symptoms started, I had gone into complete kidney failure, complete liver failure, and other organs were beginning to decline. I was immediately admitted to the hospital, of course. I distinctly remember at 8 years old being terrified. I knew the hospital was a place that you shouldn't really be in. All the adults around me, the people that I looked up to, were terrified. And that really scared me, and I had no clue what was going on. It came to pass that I was diagnosed with atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome, or AHUS, which is what I called it for years after because I couldn't really pronounce all of that long name. I had a catheter put into my neck, and I was on dialysis for about 2 weeks while we looked for treatments, ways to solve the problem that I was having, which was my white blood cells attacking my red blood cells, shutting down my kidneys, and shutting down everything else associated. In total, oh my God, I'm sorry. I was on dialysis for a couple weeks before we found a treatment. It was called eculizumab, which I couldn't pronounce at the time as well, or Soliris. I want to say that about less than a week after getting on this drug, I was discharged from the hospital. I spent about a total of 31 days in the hospital and months in recovery. And that was a hard chapter in my life, but my journey was far, far from over. It turned out that eculizumab didn't work all the time. About every 2 weeks, I had to go down to the hospital and get an infusion, which from being in the hospital wasn't really the worst thing in the world. It became something that was serious to something that I just had to live with. And I did that for 8 years, every 2 weeks, going down to Primary Children's, getting an IV stuck in my hand or my arm, and waiting about 2 hours for my drug to fully infuse into my body. Luckily, about 2 years ago, a new version came out by the same company that was every 8 weeks. And I am still on that. About 3-4 weeks ago was my last infusion that I had. And this kind of leads me back to the start of the talk. I mentioned that I don't usually talk about my rare disease, and this is why. Because with treatments, with tech and pharma and all the life sciences, my disease went from something that was severe to something that I probably think about 2-3 times a day, in the morning when I take my meds and in the night when I take my meds. And this means that I don't let my rare disease define me. I can choose to let it not define me. I don't introduce myself as a rare disease patient. I introduce myself as a student pursuing STEM who's in the scientific research initiative at the U, where I'm in a lab studying bees and pollen and metagenomics, who is passionate about what I do, what I work with. And I am so very, very thankful for that, because my disease has taught me a lot of things. It's taught me to be kind and compassionate. It taught me to live as much as possible. In less than a week, I was in the organ failure from just running around the house and playing Minecraft or whatever at the time. I don't really remember. And it taught me compassion, empathy. It taught me about the world of rare disease. AHUS, if I remember correctly, occurs maybe 2 instances per 1 million people. And so being connected to the rare disease community has helped me feel like there are others who share this experience, that I'm not alone in this world. Being diagnosed and getting treatment has given me an immense passion. The entire reason that I'm working in a lab, that my emphasis is in genetics, is because I had a genetic disease. At 8 years old, I didn't understand what that was. ATCG, I'd saw in like Jurassic Park maybe once before. I had no clue, but I knew that at the time that is something that I wanted to do. I distinctly remember declaring to my mom at the age of 10 that I want to be a geneticist, that I'm going to cure my disease and win not 1, but 2, but 6 Nobel Prizes. And now that I'm in college at a university, I realize that it is still something that I want to do. And I'm so very proud that that passion has stayed with me. Just yesterday, I took a genetics midterm, and throughout my homework and the exams of that class, hearing that remembering about what I have, a deletion in 3 of my genes in one of my chromosomes, and then learning about what that is just drives me in life. And I am so proud, I'm so thankful that I can have that opportunity, mainly because of the treatments that have been developed by biotech, pharmaceutical, and life science companies. Sorry. And I know that, and this has taught me that I know firsthand exactly how much a single drug, how much a single group of molecules can change someone's life. And that's why I want to go into biotech. I want to do the same to others. What happened to me? I'm so immensely proud to be a part of rare disease community. I have met so many amazing people and have seen so many amazing things in my life that I would have never thought possible otherwise. And I know that I had a whole complete tangent about how I don't let my disease define me. And that's true, but sometimes labels stick. And so what I choose is that if a rare disease is, in the end, going to define me, it should define me as someone who is passionate, someone who is compassionate, someone who is resilient, someone who's determined, someone who can choose the life that they want to live. And overall, the only reason that occurred is because of the opportunity and the treatment given to me. My drug was approved by the FDA only 2 years before I got diagnosed. If I was born 2-3 years earlier, the treatment available at the time was, I believe, plasma transfusions, which I hear wouldn't have been very optimal at the time. And so, really, I just am very thankful to the biotech, pharmaceutical, and life sciences companies, to all of the work that you all do. And I hope that this can kind of be a way for you to visualize how important the work is, because I could not be standing here, I probably couldn't even be standing, speaking to all of you, moving around, seemingly normal, without the work, the time, the effort poured in to all of the developments and innovations and research that has been made. And just from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you very much. And that's it.